Hi everyone. So I cannot believe we are already like at the almost end of spring, getting ready to head into summer. I feel like this spring has just flown by, and I'm going to be straight up honest with you guys, I have not even remotely done all of the planty things that I should have been doing this spring. We are going to be tackling that in an upcoming video, but because we are almost at the end of spring, it is time for me to give you guys my spring favorites. So we are going to be looking at houseplants that have amazed me in some way during this spring. And this is not always, when I do these videos, you guys, it's not always like, oh my gosh, this is the plant that grew the best for me and look how big and beautiful it's gotten. Sometimes the plants that impress me the most are like ones that are going through a rehab and they just suddenly like turned it around and started pushing out a bunch of new growth and things like that. So you're going to get a little bit of variety in that regard today, but I do want to start with a Hoya because you guys, like, I have more Hoyas blooming now. So if you aren't following me on Facebook or Instagram at Aloha Plant Life, and if you've missed a few videos back, we touched on some of these plants as well, but my Hoya Carnosa Super Silver was the first Hoya to bloom for me, and that happened earlier this spring. I then let you guys know that my Hoya Wilbur Graves, which is slightly out of view right up here, had started to bloom as well. But then I discovered that one of my all-time favorite Hoyas is blooming for the first time, and I am just so excited about it, you guys. So we are going to be taking a look first at my beautiful variegated Hoya Carnosa compacta. Absolutely love this plant with its crinkled variegated leaves, and you can see sometimes the leaves come in almost all, or actually all, white. Beautiful, beautiful plant. This plant has been getting some sun stressing. Hopefully you guys will be able to see here, because we were still, until just recently, I think just about this week, we were still getting direct light coming in the southern facing windows, and this does live directly in a southern facing window in my bedroom. So that's why it's been a little bit sun stressed, but that will start to go away over the next probably like few weeks. We'll start to see like less of that reddish blush going on this plant. But for all I know, the sun stressing might be what triggered it to bloom. And hopefully you guys can see this beautiful ball of Hoya flowers that just opened this week. Oh my gosh, it's so pretty, you guys. I love it. This is the first one I've had where it actually looks like kind of like a full ball. On the other plants, it just kind of looks like a half sphere. So I was super excited about that. I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not a big fan of the smell of the blooms on this one, or honestly on my Hoya Wilbur Graves, but the ones on the Carnosa smell like honeysuckle. They are amazing. This almost has kind of a chocolatey smell to it, but like chocolatey, but not quite right. I don't know. That's the best way I can explain it. Hopefully, if anybody else has smelled one of these before, hopefully you know what I mean. Maybe you can describe it better in the comments down below for people. But so happy about that. And this plant has gotten a lot more growth on it, you guys. I will say this is the longest vine. This hasn't grown a lot in the last year, but these vines that were shorter are all starting to get much, much longer. And hopefully you guys can see there's a branch. I keep calling it a branch, part of the vine that's pushing out here. So this one's really starting to take off as well. And there are other let me try that again, you guys. Other peduncles that have started to develop on here that I've noticed, but none of them have actually started to push flowers yet. I know I found at least 3 in total, including the one that's already in bloom. But yeah, so happy about this plant. Let's take a look and see how it's looking from a root standpoint. Okay, these roots look about, I did recently water this, so it might be kind of hard for you guys to see. Plus it is like, oh my gosh, you guys, it is so gloomy today. I had to break out the ring light for lighting in here, which I hate using, which is why you're getting a massive glare on this pot. But hopefully you can see decently rooted, but not a ton of roots. This isn't going to need to be repotted this year, which I kind of knew it wasn't. Hoya's can live in pots for decades. I know some people who have had Hoyas in the same pot for decades. They're usually pretty happy when they're super root bound. So this plant is not going to be one of the ones that we will be repotting in an upcoming video, but super excited to see how much more this grows over the summer and how many more blooms we get. Okay, let me put this back in its cover pot. If I can get it in there. By some miracle, you guys, the cats are all napping This is the same time I normally film videos. Normally they're all up in my business, but no, we're lucky today. Maybe because it's dreary outside, everybody decided to take a nap. Okay, so up next, I actually want to take a look at a plant that I think wasn't in my winter favorites video, may have been featured in my fall favorites video. I at least mentioned this plant in that video, I'm pretty sure, but man, just looking at her. Let's just get her up here. So this is my Cattleya Rosa Picta Medallion, aka Rose or Rosie. She has a name because she came with a built-in name. Reminder to you guys, Cattleyas technically have been reclassified as Gopertia. Still waiting for everybody to get on board with calling them that before I make the shift. So I mentioned in that last video that she came up in that she had just taken off. She used to be one of my most problematic Cattleyas, constantly getting like the brown crispy leaf tips, losing a bunch of leaves in the winter and not pushing out new leaves. But this past winter and fall, she just out of nowhere took off. Now that doesn't mean that we didn't still lose leaves. We still lost leaves. We have one that stopped praying over here, a tiny one that's probably gonna die off here pretty soon, but not unexpected. But look at all of these big, beautiful new leaves she's pushing out. I can see at least one new one still coming in right now. And they look pristine, you guys. There's not like a lot of crispy edges or anything like that. Now, the cats have done a little bit of that whole chewing on the leaves thing. I don't know how well y'all can tell there, but there are some little holes in some of these leaves. They aren't that horrible, which is kind of hard for them to get to because she's on one of my nightstands in my bedroom, but I have a bunch of books stacked on the other side of the nightstand, and then there's a lamp in between the books and her, so it's really kind of hard for the cats to get to her, but every now and again, they get over there because they want me to wake up and feed them. That's the only time that they will mess with her. But regardless, I mean, you guys, look at this. She has never looked so good. She looks like, I was gonna say, she looks like she just got brought home from a nursery, except honestly, I think she looks better than she would have looked if I had just bought her and brought her home from a nursery. Also just dumped a ton of dirt all over my lap out of her pot. But yeah, so impressed with her. And she does grow better in the spring and summer than in the fall and winter. So if she did all of this throughout fall, winter, and the start of spring, I cannot wait to see what she is gonna look like by the end of summer. But super impressed with Rose. Okay, next plant I wanna take a look at. I honestly can't even remember if I've shown this to you guys since I did this. I feel like I talked about it in a video. I don't think we did it in a video together. You guys, I cannot believe how many videos I've done on this channel at this point. Like, I was like, that could not be the right number. And it's so many now that I'm having a hard time remembering what we did on videos way back when and what we didn't. But if you don't remember, or if I just actually never mentioned it in a video, I decided at one point that I wanted a fuller pot of EPI Primum Manulas. And I did around this time last year get my first EPI Primum Manula from one of you guys who lives in Hawaii. You had sent me some cuttings and they were fabulous. They were doing great. I had them potted up, but I just wanted a bigger, fuller pot more quickly. And in case you guys aren't aware, this is a plant that does not grow that fast. Even though it is an epiprimnum, and typically epiprimnums grow pretty quickly, the Manula is kind of an exception to the rule. It grows more slowly than the rest of them. And so at a certain point, because I still had some of these plants in my rare plant inventory for my rare plant pop-up shops, I decided to just keep all the ones I had in inventory and pot them up with the ones that were sent to me by one of you guys, so that I had a nice full pot of Manula. And I am in love, and this plant is finally starting to trail a bit more, as you guys can see right here. This was all just sticking straight up. Nothing was trailing when I potted this up. Hopefully I made a note of the date I potted this up on and can flash it up on screen for you so you know how long it's been in this pot. But yeah, we're definitely starting to trail some more. There is like, it's kind of deceiving too, because look at this, you guys. This was kind of tucked up in the pot, but look how long that's gotten. So technically that's trailing. I'm kind of thinking maybe I want to leave it doing what it was doing because it's trying to push roots down in there, and that will help root it. And then I can clip those off and kind of easily self-propagate it. So now I'll have even more cuttings in there to fill it in even more. So let me get it tucked back in how it was. It's probably mad at me, like, lady, I was ideally positioned to help make you a fuller plant. But now you've messed me up. All right, there we go. I think that's how it was. But yes, so happy about this. We are a little bit more barren on this side, but trying to position, I don't even remember how many there were. 1, 2, 3, 4, looks like 6. I think there's 6 different plants in this pot, trying to get them all in there without like breaking everything up. I didn't want to like take all the substrate off because they were all already in the same substrate. Trying to get them in there and have it perfectly spaced doesn't always happen. So this side, of course, looks a little bit better than the other side. But I have had this plant now living in the southeast facing window in my kitchen, which you would think could be a little bit too much light for it, especially when we were still getting the direct sunlight. Actually, it's always going to get a little bit of direct sunlight, at least in the mornings, even in the summer. And I do think that maybe it was a little bit much sometimes, because I don't know if you guys can see the white part. If I can get this leaf to stay open. You see how that's kind of brown there? Sometimes browning like that can happen on the white part of plants just because it's the white part of the plant and browning tends to happen. But the way this looks makes me think it just got a little bit too much sun. But it didn't really affect the green parts of the plant, as you can tell. And now we're not going to be getting direct light for as much of the day in that spot. So that's probably where I'm going to leave it for now, because honestly, it's just on the floor in front of that window, you guys. It's not a good spot style-wise for it, but I need to finish purging the plants that I talked about in a recent video. I need to get them out of here so that I can have more room for these plants, because ideally what I want to do is I want to take this one and put it up on the shelves above my couch, where in the spot where currently the EPI Primum Manula Baltic blue is. So that's the overall like plan for where this plant will eventually go. It will still be getting southern facing light, but it will be considerably further back so that we shouldn't have that kind of thing happening. But regardless, super impressed with this plant and how it's been doing, and just so much happier to have like a fuller pot of Mandula. All right, put that one down. Let me check who's next on the list. We are going to, I think we're going to look at a problem plant. Actually, the next 2 plants are kind of plants that had issues, not really issues. Well, one of them had issues, but let's look at this one first, because we did repot this plant together in a video. This is my green Maranta. So you can see what it was looking like when we repotted it. It was kind of acting up. I was getting a lot of yellowing leaves, losing a lot of leaves. We repotted it, and then it kind of kept going downhill from there. Like the whole reason I repotted it was because it was having issues, and then I checked and it was root bound. But sometimes, you guys, with Marantas in particular, Cattleya's as well, prayer plant family plants with the exception of Tenanthes, and honestly my Stromanthe doesn't do it either, but Marantas and Cattleya's for sure have a tendency to throw a little bit of a fit because you repotted them. And I don't care. Like if you messed with the roots, didn't mess with the roots, they just like don't like being repotted sometimes, and they will just start dropping leaves and doing weird things. But Marantas, I find, throw a little bit bigger of a fit than most, and the way they do it makes you think you're killing the plant. And then usually what happens is people overreact, they do bad things, and you actually end up killing the plant. Whereas if you would have just let it be, it probably would have been fine. So case in point, this plant continued to lose leaves. The new leaves it was putting out were smaller and smaller. It got down to where I think it was like one vine. We had maybe like this much leafage coming out of it. They were tiny. I was like, oh my God, like, what are you doing? Like every time I would walk in my bathroom, like, why are you doing this to me? And then out of nowhere, it did what Marantas do, and it decided, all right, I'm done throwing a fit. Here I go. And here's what we look like now. So this has happened, you guys, in the course of like the last month, maybe month and a half. I can see, I don't know if you guys can see, I'm gonna end up dumping dirt everywhere today. You see that yellow, there's kind of a yellow leaf tucked in there. I don't know how well you can see it. There's a tiny yellow leaf tucked in there. And that's one of those old leaves where that was all that was left, were tiny leaves like that. It's still killing those little ones off, but it doesn't matter because now look what it's pushed out in its place. All of these big, giant leaves. It is flowering again for the first time, I think, since being repotted, which with Marantas, when they're flowering, it's usually because they're happy, you guys. But I mean, look at these leaves. They are big, they are beautiful. We are completely filled back in. We aren't like trailing. Honestly, this plant, this particular Maranta, has never gotten to the trailing stage for me. It's more likely, in my experience, than my other Marantas, which, by the way, you guys, they live in the exact same window in my bathroom. They're lined up together. So it's not like the differences between the three are related to conditions because they're all in the same conditions. But in my experience, the green Maranta will do this cycle of, I'm going to put out all these big, beautiful leaves. I'm going to fill in this pot. And then randomly at some point in the year decide, I'm going to start killing off all these leaves. I'm going to start putting out tinier leaves till we get down to what we were looking at before when we originally got ready to repot this plant. And then it'll start over and start pushing out big, beautiful leaves again. This can just be a natural cycle, at least in my experience. If anybody else has had a different experience, feel free to comment down below and let us know. This can just be a cycle. So don't always get freaked out if you see your Maranta starting to do that. There might be absolutely nothing wrong with it. But lots of times we see that, we panic, we think there's something wrong, and then we do horrible things that actually cause a problem when there was no problem to begin with. But yes, super impressed with this. Some of these leaves, you guys, actually look slightly variegated. Can you guys see this? There's like some kind of like striping going on it. I don't know. It's only on a few leaves. And like the newer ones that are coming in don't have it, but I've also never experienced that on this plant before either. So that was kind of interesting. But yes, very happy that we are back looking good, because honestly, that side of the shelf above my tub in my bathroom, I was just like, we got a big, beautiful plant in the middle. We got something doing, I don't even know what over here. And then we had the next plant that we're going to look at over on the other side that had me going really as well. So we're going to look at my lemon lime Maranta next. Now you guys did see this. I think we looked at this in the repotting mistakes video. Yes, that was the video, because I kept telling you guys that I committed one of the repotting sins in that video. But honestly, just a reminder, I did it because this is a rhizome-based plant and I felt like it could handle it. It actually has handled it now, but it threw a bit of a fit in the first place. And I honestly didn't appropriately adjust my watering for what I did. So I caused part of the problems with this plant. But just a reminder, the last time we looked at this plant, there were leaves that were rolled up. I told you guys they're not going to unroll because they got that way due to stress from the repotting situation and the fact that I didn't have my watering dialed in after I repotted it. But I told you in that video that it was starting to push out new growth. I felt like it was going to be fine. And you guys, it wasn't even like, what was that? A few weeks ago we did that video? I feel like it was only a few weeks ago, and we are already looking much, much better. Now we do still have some rolled up leaves. I didn't cut them off because if light still can get in that crevice there, it'll still help to photosynthesize. So I wasn't just going to cut back a bunch of leaves, but look at all the new leaves that have come in that are nice and flat, beautifully colored. You can see up here, we have more coming in, and it is also starting to flower. So I know that it is on the mend. It is on the comeback. Eventually I will be able to remove the remaining rolled up leaves. We do have one leaf I noticed that has killed itself off, one of the older ones over here that I need to remove after this. But, oh, there's another one over here that's curled up too. But those are the older leaves. So I'm not worried about that though, because all of that new growth is coming in and it is filling this plant in, and it is starting to make its grand comeback, just like the green Maranta. Now this could also have to do with the time of year, because we are now they're getting more light throughout the day. Like, I didn't say that quite right. They're getting more hours in a day of sunlight than they were before. And I find that my Marantas really like that. Now I have to be careful in that window. It is an east facing window. It is frosted glass. So when they get direct light through that window, it's not really direct because the frostedness of that glass diffuses it. But the problem that I have to be careful with where I live is that window can get so hot in the summer. It is not one of the windows that I have replaced. It is still the builder grade window, and yeah, it can get really hot. So I have to be careful with these plants because they really will start to take off right now. But by the time we get to July, I've got to be careful because it can get so hot in there that they'll start to pale. The leaves will start to kind of curl up even if they've just been watered. I can mitigate it a little bit by putting like a fan in there to kind of blow air on them, keep them cooled off. But I do still have the solar screen that was originally on the outside of that window. And I think what I'm probably going to do this year is just put that back on when we get into those hotter months, because these plants will tolerate lower light levels. And I think it will be okay because they're directly in the window. I think they will be okay with the amount of light that they get through that solar screen, because honestly, the first year I had them, you guys, they had a solar screen on that window that whole year and they did okay. Would they have grown better if it wasn't there? Maybe. But if it's going to protect them from getting like heat damage, then I'll just put the solar screen back on the window and everything should be all good. But very impressed with this plant. I know you guys, we haven't looked at my red Maranta in a while. You're going to get to look at it soon because I am telling you right now that thing needs to be repotted. I know it needs to be repotted and now it's killing off all kinds of leaves because it needs to be repotted. It actually has pushed new plants out of the drainage holes, like whole vines. I didn't even realize it till I was trying to trim off some of the dead leaves last week. And I was like tracing the vines back up because some of the vines were just, the whole vine was dying off, which will happen over time with Marantas. And so I was trying to go up and see if it was dying off at the top. And I just went ahead and like cut it at the top. And a couple of the ones I was tracing, I was like, where is this vine coming from? The longest vine on that plant came out of one of the side drain holes. Like, it's crazy. I don't even know. I'm probably gonna have to cut the pot off. Either that or I'm gonna have to cut that vine. And I don't want to because it's the longest, prettiest looking one on the plant right now. So we will get to see that Maranta in the future, not too distant future. Okay, who haven't we looked at here? Okay, that's everybody I've got in front of me right now. But the next plant I want to look at is too big for me to sit here and get on screen for you. So we're gonna go look at it in its place. And it is my also lovely, beautiful, love this plant so much, Raven ZZ plant. All right, you guys, here is my fabulous Raven ZZ. And the reason that this plant is on my spring favorites is because it just put out not one new branch, which you can see, the bright green branch right there, but it put out 2 new branches. And normally these plants are not exactly the fastest growers. Usually they put out 1 branch here or there. And so this is the first time I've gotten more than 1 at a time. And I'm just like so excited about it. It is just so sculptural. I absolutely love it. I am hoping that this new branch stays kind of in the position it's in because it was looking like a little bit sparse in the middle because of how far out these outer branches have stretched. And it's just funny, you guys, because obviously this one is stretching for the window over here. I feel like this one over here is trying to stretch around the corner because that's where the door to my bedroom is. And that's where light from the windows in the bedroom shines towards. So I feel like it's trying to like grow that way to get to that light. But yeah, absolutely love it. The other new branch has already hardened most of the way off. Let's see. Sorry if I'm a little bit shaky, you guys. Caffeine today, and it makes my essential trimmers a little bit worse, but I needed the caffeine. So not totally hardened off. You can see it's still a little bit green, and it is just a baby branch, but it actually came out of a new one of the tubers down there, or not a new one, out of one of the tubers. Come on, camera, work for me. There we go. One of those tubers down there, it is like a new offshoot versus a branch off of one that already had branches. So that's part of the reason I think that it's a little bit smaller, more of a baby branch, but that's okay. Still helps to fill things in. And I'm just, oh, I love this plant. You guys, I know like plants that are difficult for some people are not difficult for others. And I know that a lot of you have struggled with ZZ plants. I do have a care guide on them. I will link it in the description below for you guys. But if you're somebody who wants a plant that you don't have to think about a lot, and if you want a plant that is fine living this far away from a window, ZZ plants are the plants for you. Like this plant, this time of year when we move into summertime, I go almost 3 months without watering it. And it's in like, I think that's like a 10-inch pot that it's in. And it's fine with that. What it wouldn't be fine with is if I watered it every week, every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks, even once a month in the summertime. So it is a very low maintenance plant. If you travel a lot, definitely a good plant for you because you probably aren't going to need anybody to take care of it for you while you're gone. And they just look so super sculptural. Just absolutely love it. Super excited about these new branches. Okay, guys, real quick, I want to give an honorable mention to a plant that's not actually on this list, but this is my Haworthia, and we are giving it an honorable mention because of these flowers that are insane. Can you guys see that? Look how that's like, God, it's hard to see. Do you see how that's looped and how crazy like long this is? And now it's putting out another one over here. This is like something so like, I don't know, Dr. Seussy. This is the first time this plant has flowered for me. And I'm just like, I don't even know what it's doing and where it's going with this, but it keeps pushing more and more. So, and it's happy. I mean, you can see it's a happy little Haworthia. So yeah, I'm just going to let it do this, but let me go put this back real quick because Theo has woken up and he is eyeing this from the couch like he wants to attack it. All right, you guys, actually just added another honorable mention plant to the list because I noticed something when I was putting the Haworthia back. So we'll get to that in a second. But next up, that was originally on the list, is my beautiful Tanybrl Marxi, which, oh my gosh, you guys, I thought we were still small enough to get on screen, maybe if I lean back a bit more. But yes, this plant has just taken off. It's taken off so much. I think we looked at this one maybe in my fall favorites, maybe in my summer favorites video, because I talked about how much more it has started growing since I moved it upstairs, because it used to be on one of the shelves in the living room, and it was one of the shelves that's closest to the window. And so I had to keep a close eye on it because it is a prayer plant family plant and it can be really sensitive to getting direct light, and those shelves do get a little bit of direct light. I had to keep an eye on it to make sure it wasn't too much light. I wasn't seeing any bad signs. I didn't see anything, you guys, but it just wasn't growing. I mean, it just wasn't growing, and there was no other signs that, you know, it was too much light. It wasn't getting paler leaves. There were no burn marks. It wasn't curling its leaves, but it just wasn't doing anything. So I moved it upstairs and it has just taken off. It is in a east-facing window. It's in a corner where there's an east-facing window and a south-facing window, but the south-facing window still has a solar screen on it, so that cuts the light down drastically. Now, I did, shortly after the last time we looked at this, I did repot it from a 4-inch pot up into a 6-inch pot, and I mean, you guys, it has just filled in even more. Like, it hasn't even been that long since I repotted this, and it's just jam-packed in there, and it is just looking so beautiful. I mean, this is on track now to start doing what my Tanybrl Marxi did when I bought it, it was a little bit, the Tanybrl Marxi, it was a little bit smaller than this one is right now. And you guys, look at it now. This thing is massive. I guarantee you it needs to be repotted. For sure, I need to probably trim it back a little bit. I definitely need to put some more support sticks in it. But holy crap, like that plant has gotten massive, and that is where this one is now starting to head, because it is starting to grow at the same rate that that one has grown for me. And I am just, oh my gosh, I'm so excited about this. It's going to outgrow the table, the end table it's on upstairs, like super fast at this rate. We're probably going to have to get like a little plant stand, not like a tall one, but a little one to put it on in the corner behind the table at some point. But I love this plant so much, you guys. I mean, the little like fishbone kind of patterning on the leaves, and then it's got the purplish backsides, purplish reddish, but I feel like they're a little bit more purple than, for example, in some of the other prayer plant family plants. But absolutely a beautiful, stunning plant. And I haven't said this much lately, but if you've been around for a while, you'll know I always preach that if you like prayer plant family plants, but you are scared of them or you've had problems with them, especially if it was like a Cattleya with the leaves crisping up or they're just killing them off and anything like that, out of all of the prayer plant family plants, Tanybrls, in my experience, are the easiest, you guys. Look, there's like no crispy leaves or anything. I've never had a crispy leaf issue on this plant. I've never had a crispy leaf issue on my Tanybrl Marxi at all. I don't use humidifiers for them. The Tanybrl Marxi lives so far away from any windows and it's still that massive. Like, they're really easy, you guys. The biggest thing is just to make sure you don't let them dry too much out. But out of all the prayer plant family plants, I find you can let these dry out more than the rest without having a major problem. I cannot recommend Tanybrls enough for people who really like prayer plant family plants but feel like they just can't make it work. Absolutely beautiful, beautiful plant. Oh, I kind of want to move it downstairs because I don't spend that much time in that room upstairs and I don't get to enjoy it as much. You know what I mean? Like, this kind of the downside of living in a 2-story house when it's just you and your cats. Like, I don't use the upstairs that much unless I have people visiting, and then we'll hang out in that room. But like, yeah, I guess that's probably why I don't have a ton of plants upstairs now that I think about it, is just because I don't get to see them that often. But absolutely impressed with this plant. Okay. Another honorable mention plant that I just randomly decided to grab is another Hoya, and this is my Hoya Crimson Princess, aka, oh, what is it? Exotica Tricolor, I think is the other name that they give this. Technically, it's a form of Hoya Carnosa. And this plant has also been getting, flip it around here, some sun stressing. Hopefully you can see that reddish tint on those leaves because it does live in the same window as the Hoya Carnosa compacta that we already looked at. But look at this. You see this long vine that is shot off here. We got another long vine shooting off here. And this is what I wanted to bring this plant out for to show you is there is a peduncle on here. I knew it was starting to get a peduncle, but it was honestly doing absolutely nothing. And I noticed a second ago, I'll get some better footage with my iPhone, but I noticed it is actually starting to bloom. There are little buds on there. It is getting ready to flower. I am so excited about this. I do not think, let me give this plant a quick scan over before I say something wrong. I don't think I've seen any other peduncles. Yeah, unless there's some hiding, which there could be, higher up on these vines. That is the only one I see so far. There's a good chance though that this one might start to get one here soon because that's pretty much what's happened with the crazy long vines that has shot off on the Wilbur graves is that each one has now started to get at least one peduncle. So super excited about this, super excited to see what these flowers look like and smell like compared to the other Hoyas. Just so happy that almost all of my Hoyas are in bloom. I say almost all, it's not really accurate because I got 3 I'm looking at right now that aren't. All of my larger leafed Hoyas are in bloom. All of my smaller leaf ones, I keep checking them, like my Curtisii, my Linearis, my Wayettii. I keep checking them. It's like nothing. I don't know. Maybe it's just like, well, except for my Croniana is. So I don't know. I was trying to find some logical explanation, you guys, where clearly there is not a logical explanation. Okay, I am going to go grab the, oh no, we still have 3 plants to look at. Actually, you know what? Let's look at, well, this plant next, because we have not talked about my big Monstera in a while, I feel like, other than when you guys commented on it in the comments on videos, but it is pushing out a ton of new leaves in the last like week and a half, 2 weeks. So let me flip you guys around and we'll talk about her. All right, you guys, so here is my massive Monstera, and for those of you who do not know or do not recall, this is technically 9 vines, although I think it might actually be 10 now, and I'll explain what I mean in a second, in one pot. I probably need to break this up next time I repot it, and I'm pretty sure it probably needs to be repotted. I think it's been 2 years, maybe over 2 years now, since maybe I think 2.5 years since I last repotted it, but it has just started popping off a bunch of new growth. I do have support stakes in here now, helping to hold it up. I did recently remove a bunch of the lower leaves. Honestly, they were healthy, but they were starting to hang low even though I had staked it up. They were hanging so low down here and the cats like run through here and they were getting ripped and everything else. So I took some of those off. I left some there because I just didn't want it to look like totally barren under there. But look at these new leaves that are coming in. This is the newest, like fully opened, almost hardened off leaf. You can see how shiny it is. It's not totally hardened off yet, but nice, big, full of slits. Absolutely love it. We've got another one coming in right here that looks like it's going to be fully fenestrated. I thought there was another one somewhere. Maybe I was wrong, or maybe it already unfurled and now I've lost track of which leaf it was, which is not surprising when it starts putting out so many leaves at once. But I did want to show you guys, it is pushing off. Oh, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to get in there. Hold on, let me reposition. Okay guys, hopefully you can see right there, that is a completely new vine that has sprouted off from the base of one of these vines. And I have never had this Monstera or any other Monstera I own do this before. And yeah, so I was kind of like, wow, because I've heard a lot of people say that Monsteras typically won't do that as frequently or as easily, or in case of some people have told me ever do that. But we see it a lot with like pothos and things like that. But yeah, so I was kind of shocked. So hopefully you guys can see, it's this little guy right here. It's put out a little tiny baby leaf and now it's putting out its first probably normal shaped leaf. So that's why I said we are now technically 10 vines, but let me get back out from under this plant. Okay, so yeah, really taken off, you guys. You can see how tall these leaves up here have gotten. We're almost up to the light switch now. It is definitely stretching up for that Soltech aspect pendant light, and it is just doing amazing. And so, yeah, I think we're gonna have to check it here soon to see if it needs to be repotted. I kind of, just looking at it right now though, you guys, I don't want to break it up. Like, I feel like even if I removed one vine, it's just gonna not look as like good. I don't know. Comment down below and let me know if you would bust it up or not. I mean, if I do break it up, I'm not gonna like leave it with just one vine, because I don't really like the look of Monsteras when they're just one vine, because like if any leaves die off lower down, like then it starts to look weird. So I would want it to leave like probably at least half the vines in there, but I don't know. What would you guys do? Let me know. But yes, super impressed with this plant. Like, oh, it's just so fabulous. Okay guys, these next two plants are plants that were rehab plants, and I am just so happy that they are fully on the mend at this point. Well, one of them wasn't really a rehab plant, but they're both leca plants. So one of them was definitely a rehab. That's the one we're going to look at first. The other one, I just wanted to transition it to leca. So it was having to go through that process, which kind of is like a little bit of a, we're going to make you unhappy and then we're going to rehab you and get you acclimated to a new growing environment. So the first one I want to show you, really didn't think about it when I put this on the list, that this is really heavy to hold up for you guys now, but this is my Philodendron Ploumanii. And just a quick reminder before I show it to you, this plant just wasn't really growing and it was kind of getting paler leaves, and I couldn't figure out why. I kept trying different lighting spots in my house. And finally I was just like, I don't know, like, I feel like maybe the roots aren't happy. And then we had the fertilizer burn situation and I was like, then it started getting a little bit worse. I was like, maybe I should check the roots. And yeah, we had some root rot going on. So I decided I wanted to transition it to leca anyway. And so I decided to just go ahead and basically remove all the roots, start brand new roots in water, and then move it to leca, which I did. We went down to one leaf in that process. That one oldest leaf still looks like crap, but I don't care, because guess what happened this week, you guys? Look at that big, beautiful new leaf. So not looking fantabulous, the oldest one there. That's fine though, because look at that leaf. I'm sorry it's hard to hold this still, but this thing is heavy with all this leca in it. And look at the coloring on it, you guys. Oh, I really wish it wasn't so gloomy today, because I feel like everything on camera is gonna read slightly more yellow or orangish because of the artificial light I'm having to use. But hopefully you guys can tell just how beautiful that is. It is bigger than the last leaf. Like, that is the best looking leaf this plant has put out. I am so happy. I think we're probably gonna, it's already like the secondary, not, what am I starting to say? The auxiliary bud has already like gotten to full size since this happened. So I feel like we're going to start to push out more leaves more quickly at this point. I'm gonna set this guy down because he's heavy with all this leca in this pot. But yes, so happy, you guys. Oh my God, this looks so beautiful. It's so shiny. It's so new. It hasn't hardened off yet, but yes, so happy that this plant seems to be liking the leca. I did end up having to bury the stolon a little bit more in the leca, because originally I just kind of had it sitting on the surface, but it was flopping all over the place. Like, even though I still have like a support on it right now to kind of hold it upright until it gets more rooted and grabs onto that leca a little bit more, it was just flopping over so easily. Theo jumps on the counter. He would like barely tap it and the whole thing would like flop over. And so I ended up burying it a little bit more just on the back end, because the stolon was about this long, you guys, even though we only have 2 leaves on the front. And most of the roots were coming out from the back end. There were a few new ones that were coming out of the front. So I couldn't really, I mean, I could have chopped it in half, but then it was like, I would have had to wait for the roots in the front to get longer. So I just decided to kind of tilt the back end of the stolon down. And it's not super deep in there. It should be fine. You just don't want to put it so far down in there that it's staying wet for too long, because you don't want to risk it the stolon itself starting to rot. But I am so happy about this plant. I don't know where I'm going to put it. So originally the plan was, and where we had originally put it was up on my mantle with the Soltech Vita Grow Light. I put that into the spotlight fixture above my mantle. And honestly, like, I moved it because, like I said, it wasn't really growing. The leaves looked a little bit pale. And I was like, well, is it too much light? Like, is it too close to it? Like, or is it not enough? And so I kept trying it in all these different places, you guys. And I was just like, I have no idea like what the deal is. But I also don't know exactly when the root problem started. Like, I know it got like to the point where I had to do something when the fertilizer burn situation happened, but I don't know if it was already like having root issues before the fertilizer burn, if you know what I mean. So who knows? The Soltech light might be fine. So we might try it back up there, but right now it's just been living next to my sink in a west facing window, and it's on the side of the sink where the light doesn't come from, if that makes sense. So if it's here, the sun shines in from this side, so the plants over here get the direct rays for a brief amount of time in the afternoon. It doesn't. It's got massive indirect light going on over here, which for some plants, it wouldn't be enough, but obviously it just put out a big, beautiful leaf that also didn't get stuck, unlike some of the other plants, the next one we're going to look at. But yeah, so it obviously is okay with that level of light, but it's not intended to be living there. The only reason I still have it up there is because I did have that flat mite outbreak on the cyclamen that was up there. And because these plants, these two we're looking at right now, were next to the sink, I was just concerned they might have flat mites. So I didn't want to move them anywhere else yet until I felt confident that there weren't flat mites. And I'm feeling pretty confident that that has been resolved down here. I'm not 100% certain it's been resolved on the cyclamen that's quarantined upstairs, but we'll talk about that another day. Okay, last plant I want to look at. Oh, and it's starting to, looks like it's starting to try to kill off its oldest leaf, which is not unexpected, but oh my goodness, it's pushing out a new leaf. I feel like it's just starting to take off. The leaf is looking a little bit stuck. Might have a little bit of damage. Probably need to run some water over it after this, but this is my Philodendron El Choco Red. So just a reminder, this was a plant that was sent to me by Aroid Asia. Did come in with 4 leaves that were beautiful. They weren't yellow. They had some just regular like scarring damage. Like you can see the brown spots up here. Like it just had that from wherever it was growing in their facility. So, but other than that, they were beautiful. And I did pot it up in soil originally, but then I just had seen a lot of people who have them in, like I was saying, they're having really good experience with it. Because it is a velvet leafed philodendron, sometimes the leaves have a tendency to get stuck, especially on, for example, the Philodendron gloriosum. And this, to me, is very similar in terms of leaf texture and whatnot. So I was like, well, I'll put it in leca because I feel like in leca, just naturally, the humidity around the plant is a little bit higher. I mean, it's not crazy higher, you guys, but it is like in a thing of water, right? So naturally, water is evaporating off. So I feel like that kind of helps. Like I said, not a big amount, but does do something. So I did pot this up. It is doing fabulous. This newest leaf that came in did get stuck. There's a little bit of damage. I don't know if you guys can see it right there. See the holes? That's because I tried to help unstick it. I was trying not to help unstick this one, but it looks like it's got like a weird water spot on it. I don't know. Can you guys see this? It's like a little brown spot right there. So this one might have a touch bit of damage. I'm not sure what that's from. It could be like when I did my most recent leca flush on this, there's a possibility that when I was adding the nutrient solution back, maybe I accidentally dripped some on that leaf while it was coming out. That could have caused that kind of mark or damage on it. But all in all, I mean, this leaf had only been out for this newest one for, I don't know, maybe fully out for 2 weeks before it started really pushing what I knew was going to be another new leaf. And now we have that leaf back here. So it looks like we're really taking off in terms of growth. Now I do need to figure out a pole situation for this one, you guys. And I think I know what I'm going to do. And I think I have it. I don't know. I might have to order. I might not have enough sections. I might have to order another one. I think I know what I'm going to do with it. I just need to get around to actually doing it. But yes, this plant is really taking off. The roots are spreading around nice in there. I was going to try and hold it up, but I'm going to end up making a mess. And they're kind of hard to see because there's around the edge of the pot where the water level sits, there's like hard water deposits. I don't even think it's actually hard water deposits, but mineral deposits or whatnot from the nutrient solution that's kind of making it hard to see. But super happy that this plant has successfully transitioned to leca and is starting to take off. And even though it does look like it's about to try to kill off this oldest leaf, I don't care because that leaf was not looking like super perfect when it arrived from Aroid Asia anyways. So we want all brand new fancy leaves that look like this, but definitely impressed with this plant. All right, you guys. Well, those are my spring favorites. Would love to hear about what some of your spring favorites are. So feel free to comment down below and let me know. I hope you guys have enjoyed today's video. If so, please be sure to click that like and or subscribe button. And I look forward to seeing you guys again next time. Aloha.